I'm Johnny C. Martinez, and I was born here in Española, May 11th, 1955. We struggled through life. We weren't rich, and we were rich in love with my mom and my dad. When we were kids, my mom took us out to California every summer since we were about 7 years old to the strawberry fields to go pick up strawberries to help her buy our own clothes for school. And I used to go to the main streets there, and we used to see hot rods. They had it more like a hot rod style, and some of them were a little bit lowriders. And then when I was there, I said to myself, I want a car like that someday. I can afford it now because we were working for my mom. But someday, I said, I'm going to build me a car like that and get me one of those cars.
Yeah, the styles on lowriders, on how we paint them, how we fix them, all that, have evolved greatly over the last, even since when I started. Like I said, back then, like let's say you bought a nice, decent 68 Impala, 67 Impala, 65 Impala, it probably was going to even have the original paint. A lot of people, they would just start off, you'd buy the car, you'd put your rims on it, drop it down from the back end. Later on, you'd buy hydraulics. So, we'd upgrade the rims every once in a while because if your budget was, at a certain level, you had a starter set of rims, and then later on you saved up for the next more expensive ones.
My first car was a '64 Impala Super Sport, and I bought it for $700 from a man down there in Wells Park in '76, and I still have that car today. I still own it, and I used to drive it to high school. And back then we didn't used to have hydraulics, so we just used to get sandbags and throw them in the trunk so it'd be lower on the ground and just drag it all around town. We really didn't care as long as we were low.
Of course, we were not the richest family. We were pretty poor, so if we want to have something to drive around and get around in, we had to fix it. So my dad used to buy older cars and then fix them. So I got to learn about cars at a very young age, how to fix them and what to do to them. And of course, I always liked to lower them. I remember my dad bought a 1951 Chevy pickup. First thing I did to it was I cut the gear, because the 4-speed, the big old gear, I cut it real short. And I took the seat off and lowered the seat. And then we got a bunch of concrete bags and put them in the back so it would lower the truck down. Looked cool as could be. My dad wasn't too happy about it, but we were looking pretty cool.
Oh, California, we saw a whole bunch of them. That's the life of the Hispanic. They always like lowriders up there. There was a Main Street there. They used to call it the 4th Street there in Santa Ana. And everybody used to cruise there real low with them oldie bagooties just hanging out.
I remember lowriders as long as I can remember. My dad had weavers that he contracted with, and there was one in particular, Porfirio Rodriguez. He was born in Española, left the valley, went to California to work, and then he came back to Española, and he had a 58 Impala. It was lowered and had the Continental kit. It was tricked out. In the back window, it had a stop light, and the brake light was connected to that. So he had the high-mounted brake light before anybody else. It looked a lot like the American Graffiti 58 Impala.
Every year, since I can remember, my parents always took us to California for 2 weeks. Where my dad grew up in San Fernando, Inglewood. I would always see these cars there. Like so many times you go to Española and you see these cars. And that's where I got spiked into this. All my uncles on my mom's side lived in California. They were hardcore guys. These are viejito guys that were like, in the hardcore land, the big city. They lived in the city. Well, they used to always call me a mocosito, a little guy there, whatever. But every year we always waited because that was our thing. We go on. We wouldn't fly. We would drive. We'd always stay at my grandma's. My grandma lived in San Fernando Valley. And nothing like grandma, cooking, staying there, and then getting with your other cousins, that were lived there, and bad vatos. I mean, these guys were crazy. Those guys were Chicano cholos. They had their little hats, their little nice iron, their khakis, like, wow, like flawless, like suits to me, and seeing that, I was like, orale. They were like, we were just totally different, but yet different parts of, our culture, and seeing, like I said, going there and that, seeing these cars, and then they're seeing what they're working on. To my cousin's not here. He could tell you some stories of where he's from, coming from San Fernando, where my uncle would send him to us just to get away because he was in trouble. Once he got out of trouble with the law and that, then they would ship him here, So he'd stay with us for a minute, but he'd come, like everybody would have me go in my car. He's on the side passenger side. Everybody's looking at him like, Oh, wow.
The looks you get, you can't say anything. Like, I remember leaving from one of the car shows and everybody just looking there, that's a girl! And they're all, how can a girl drive? And right on, there's a girl driving! And then all the girls would start cheering, and because there was a girl driver, and I thought, like, it was normal. Like, I thought everybody did it. Slowly now, like, how you see more and more, they're more the newer cars, like the Cadillacs and like the newer fixed cars. You don't see too much girls on the oldies.
I started in 1979. Back then, paint jobs were cheap. You could buy enough materials to paint your car for $100 or less. So we would paint our cars every year. And we drove them every day, so it didn't matter if we crashed them, if we got a scratch on it, a chip, whatever. We didn't even care because next year we were changing the color. I'd be blue one year, red the next year, it'd be burgundy the year after that, and gold the year after that. So I learned how to paint just in the backyard, and I had a lot of friends that were learning how to paint also. You know, we all kind of pitched in ideas. You know, whenever we had trouble, hey, what do you do if this happens to your spray gun, or, you know, if it's spitting, or if it's doing this, and we all, oh, well, this is what you do. We kind of, out of experience, we all learned together how to paint.
Heck, I never seen so many lowriders like back then. Now there's some lowriders, but they're more technical lowriders in the garage and cruising once in a while. But back in the 70s and early 80s, everybody would drive their lowrider everywhere. And we go to the car shows. We literally used to drive our cars to the car shows. That was before the trailer days, before we couldn't afford trailers, or we didn't even know about trailers. So we used to drive them to El Paso, to Phoenix, to Espanola.
Well, with the lowriders, what's neat about them is they drive those cars. There's no trailers. I've been at some car shows, and you go to the parking lot behind the hotel, and there's all these trailers. And these cars are what I call trailer queens. And I've always had the theory, why am I going to put all the money into this car and preserve it for the next owner? My Dodge, I paid more for the paint job than I paid for the car. You know, I'm not afraid to drive it. Why do I save it for the next owner that might not appreciate it?
Like, you can see all the other people, their cars are really clean, but they trailer them. Or you don't see them driving them. They can't drive them because they don't go that far. You know what I mean? They don't go that far. They just used to getting in and off the trailer. And not us. We go all over, and then our girls, they jump on their seats from one seat to the other, and honking the horn and everything, and we let them, that way they enjoy it. And they love to go on the cars. You know what I mean? And it might not be the best car, but it's used. You know what I mean? We use it all summer long, and all of them, not just one, all of them. So.
My first car was a 63 Chevy Impala. I made it into a little hot rod. I paid $100 for it. Back then, my first car, I was in heaven with that car. Anyway, I started building it. From there, I went to bigger deals. You know. I just like to be around those cars. It's like a passion of mine that I like to build those cars. I like to get them apart, everything, get them off the frame, open up the motor and see what they have in there. And to me, it's just like building a model car, like step by step till you get to the end.
I always say when you get a car, you cut it up and you do certain things to it. After a while, you say, well, that's not going to work. But it's too late, you already cut it. So now you got to figure a way to fix it. And when you fix it, you do certain things to it that makes it look cool. And once you get that done, people will think, how in the world did you figure that one out? You don't. It's just a creative opportunity that you have to fix to make it look right.
Pretty much for me to express myself and to learn how to do all this, I had a lot of people that had faith in me and just let me kind of do their car and just experiment. And of course, a lot of failures. So, you know, just by trial and error, you know, I just came up with kind of my own style, taking from styles from others and incorporated it into my own style, which is kind of like you see, like the lace at that time was so dead. Like all that type of style was so dead. I brought it back to the lowrider scene. Those small, intricate, and just putting lace in little places. And I mean, I have a library of stuff that I put in stuff. I burn stuff with the acetylene, the soot, and put it inside the designs. Cadillac emblems inside the paint job, and then candy over it. And like that Casanova style, I did all the artwork and it looked real gaudy, and then we would flake it and candy over it. So it was like more settled. And you'd come up on it and you would say, man, check that out, check that out. You know what I mean?
I actually have murals on the fender skirts on the 67. And one of the murals, it features the plaza here in Santa Fe. And then it has some Native American pottery on the sides of it. And then the other mural has the balloon fiesta. It has the balloons taking off. Any mural that I'm going to get done, it's going to be of scenes from New Mexico, because I'm proud to be from New Mexico, and I'd like to show that anywhere I go.
This is a 1978 Cutlass Supreme. Every year I would change my car different, change the paint job different every winter and for the next car show season. And that car, first cut I made a Hollywood top on that car. A Hollywood top is when you cut the whole section of the roof, little past your windshield, and you cut it off all the way. It's kind of like a car that has T-tops. It's about in that same area, but the T-top has a center piece on it for structure. This one we used to just cut it all the way across. And once I did it, I just cut it, and then I thought about it, and like, what do I do now? It's gonna rain. I can't go cruising. I don't have a top. I don't have a garage, but now once you start cutting it, and this, I just say it's gonna be just pretty much strictly show. There's people that have cut their cars up without reinforcing the frame. They put hydraulics on them, and I've seen those cars buckle, and that's it with that car, And I said I'll never let that happen to my car, And if you're gonna build something, you gotta build it right, where it doesn't just look good, but you know that in your heart that car will take you wherever you want to do. I've had this car since 1989, I would say. I've had this car, so I'll never let go of this car. It's always gonna be in the family.
I got into cars in about 2000. I bought my first one, and it was a 1965 Impala, Chevy Impala, Super Sport. And when I first got it, it was like a purple red. So we stripped it all the way down to the metal, primered it, and then we painted it. When we got it out to the sunlight, it had just so many different colors that it was like a ristra. Any little thing you see it a different color, just a really pretty red. So I had that for good 10 years. That was always my favorite car. Even now, I regret selling it.
That truck is a 1950 pickup truck, 5-window, and it's a kind of a lowrider, hot rodder. It has about, I think it has 8 different colors on it, all candies. And I did the whole front end. I put a front end out of a Camaro with disc brakes, and then I cut off the frame on the back, and I made it square tubing. Topped it with big old fat tires on the back for traction. For that motor that I put, I got a 454 supercharged on it with a 671 blower. So it moves. I like to build cars that would move. I don't like to just work on a car just to make it look nice. But I need to have power on those cars. When you need to pass somebody, I want it to go. I'm not rushing all the time, but when I need to go, I like that speed.
I will always say I was more of a cruiser than a hot rodder. Yeah. I like to get in the cars and just drive around and look at, and I still do that.
When I go to a lowrider show, I'm talking with people that really appreciate cars. I mean, they might have done things that I wouldn't do to them necessarily myself, but I can appreciate what they've done to them. When you see some guy that's put $30,000 into a car, maybe that's his most valuable possession. You got to appreciate that.
There's also levels of lowriding. Like, a lot of people can look down upon lowriding, but you can do that in any car culture. Anybody can pick up a wrench and take off a bolt. To be an artist, you have to set yourself apart. You can get paint jobs from anywhere, and that's cool, but if you got a Rob job, Rob Andersize, or Rob job is his paint job, you're the man. Every car that Rob happened to touch was being a world champion. He was dominating these things, best to paint every show he went to. That's how lowriders have always been defined to me, where you set yourself apart is the individuality. And Rob's never had the same paint job, so he's always been like my idol.
Most of the cars I would do, I did them to see from a distance. So like when we'd go out of town, like to a lowrider show, you'd be like on the third floor of a motel and the car's parked down there. Now that's what I meant when I did it. You see everything, the hood, the way I did the designs, how they match up from the hood to the roof. It's just like its own separate piece of art.
The 58 Impala, that's the first year the Impala came out in 1958. My son and I were looking for a 58 to build. We shopped around for a good while and we found some kind of rusty, rotten, they didn't have nothing on them. And they wanted a pretty good penny for them, 16, 20,000 for a car without no motor and it was all rusted and all that stuff. And then I found this one. I paid 20,000 for it and it was running. But it wasn't the way it is now. It was a running car. And I said to my son, it's better to buy this one better than to go find one that we won't be able to find parts for them. Those 58s are hard to find parts for them. And when you find them, they're expensive. So we went ahead and bought this one and we redid the whole car again. And then that's the way it came out too.
The 50s cars, there was a big change there. You had, these gigantic fins on Cadillacs, and you had the Bel Airs, which sort of ruled, and they still do, like in the lowrider culture. It was like the time when you had, 5-pound hood ornaments. Nobody that designs a car now would even conceive of doing that because it would cost too much. It would cost them $10 or whatever to add a hood ornament to a car. I mean, when you go to the lowrider shows and you see the cars that still have the skirts, the guys have looked for the skirts over the rear tires, and you go, okay, how much does that cost? He goes, oh, the skirt cost me $250. Somebody that's spending something like that for a small detail, just because it was like an original sort of an accessory to that car, that really appeals to me. It wasn't a throwaway society. You bought a car, a 55 car, and they weren't saying, well, you'll be trading it in a couple of years. They figured that car would be running forever, and they still are. There's an appeal to that. There's like a work ethic or something. There's something there that I think we're missing in our society now.
Back then, like people weren't so technical with the cars. We would just paint them and make them look kind of good. But as time's gone on, everybody's gotten way more technical. They're chroming, detailing, high-performance motors, rear ends. The rims have gotten real extravagant. They're engraved, masterpiece rims. It's just a lot of money now. You can put a couple $100,000 in a lowrider, believe it or not. I've seen people do that. Back then, it was a lot more simpler, and it was just put some rims and cruise. Now you got to have a radical paint job, a bunch of Kool-Aid colors, or if not, your car's got to be just super straight, no waves, no dents in the moldings, the glass got to be perfect, all the chrome. It's a lot more technical now at the lowrider shows, and cruising, everybody has gotten more into it, like the hot rodders do, or the street rodders. They're real into their cars too.
Anybody that doesn't know anything about lowriding, if I tell them about lowriding, they picture the guy that pulls up to him at the stoplight with the primered car, with the bumper falling off. Yeah, dude, I hate that too. Like, it makes my culture look bad. But when I bring somebody like my investors that I talk to, when I brought them to the car shop and I showed them the $100,000 car, they're just like mind blown that we built this thing, that like every bolt is chromed and every bolt is engraved, and this paint job, how'd you paint this? Oh, Rob did it by hand.
I just turned 34 years old, and my 63 Impala Cochina is her name. I've had her now 7 years, but it was down 4 years. And when I got the car, it was already restored. It was already candy painted. It was nice. And everybody's like, why are you taking it apart? I'm like, because it's not mine. The first time I showed it, it had interior paint. What I did was I planned it out. So I qualified at Lowrider Magazine car show. There was a Buffalo Thunder. I did a couple more things for Vegas. So by Vegas, I had hydraulics and more modifications. And then the following year, I did more. I started chroming the undercarriage, and patience is very important when you play in the major leagues, because some of these cars have nothing but patience in them. It gives everybody that's watching something new to see every time they see your car.
Airbags gives your car a better ride. It's just like riding in an airplane. You don't feel no bumps going down the road. If you hit a bump, it just like it goes right through it. A real smooth ride. You put so much air and it just rides real gentle. And the difference between a hydraulic is oil, but the hydraulic is hard, so it's almost like riding in a horse carriage, like real hard, like riding in a 2x4, because it don't give. You'll stay real still, so it's a real hard drive compared to an air ride.
Well, in the mid 70s, we used to go to Phoenix to a place called Auto Hydraulics, and then we used to go into LA and from Morley's in Long Beach, and I'd go buy hydraulics and import them into Albuquerque. So I would have the stuff there at my house where I was living with my parents in the closet, and I'd sell hydraulics and repair them there out of the house. And then when I graduated from high school, I rented an old gas station on 2nd and Manal, and I started doing paint and body work there and doing hydraulics, and it took off ever since. I've been repairing and installing hydraulics since then.
Even the trend on hydraulics has changed drastically since when I first started. The first instance of hydraulics was just because you wanted to drive your car low, but yet you wanted to get over the speed bumps to get home. Or you needed to pick it up so the cops wouldn't give you a ticket. But people started making them go faster, and that's when they discovered they could hop the cars. Back when I first started, if you had hydraulics, you had 2 switches, front and back. And then somebody came up with, well, let's see what else we can do with this. So they started they go to each corner. So you had 4 switches, front, back, and then you could do one side or the other side. You always want to up the ante on whatever somebody else has done. And it got to the point where they went from 2 switches to 4 switches to 4 pumps to 16 switches. And they started doing all these crazy things with their car, and they called it car dancing. If somebody has an idea, they're always, well, let's see how I can improve on this idea.
We moved to the South Valley, we're Hispanic, and going down there, the lowrider culture is huge. Close to, Espanola, hugeness-wise. First time I saw our neighborhood badass car guy. I'll never forget, his name was Gooch. He rolled up it was a Cadillac, I'll never forget it. It was candy paint, had the rims on it, had hydraulics, and I was just fascinated with this car because it was moving up and down.
That was my dad, he loved real fast. He loved to be always Corvette. He was always more into speed. I was more into low and slow, and we had an automotive shop. So one day, I'm there like probably 12, 13 years old. And there was very few shops there in Chimayo that had access to a battery charger, where we were able to charge these batteries to make these cars operate up and down. And he'd always, every time he would go, but there was always that moment that I just couldn't wait till my dad left. And just play with it, it was like, wow. And like you see it bouncing, and I'm 12 years old, and there was very few of those cars around there those days that had this, because these guys lived in California, worked out there. They would come back to Chimayo and they would show everybody. It was like, wow, everybody's like, no way. It was always props to these guys, not just low riding. They just went beyond, and they brought it to where, look, you can drive in any road here we have, and yet go back into the highway and just lay it down. And that's how we did. Instead of dragging and having all this dirt and rocks inside, to where they just brought it to the next level. One of them was Joe Romero, and they used to call him Scrap Iron. And the reason why they would call him Scrap Iron, because you would see this car he had, and it was a 66 Caprice, black, beautiful. And just seeing him putting another thing on bottom of his car, which they used to call him scrape plates. He had one under the car, and you'd see him in the night, and he just put it on the road, right down the road from us. And you just see all these sparkles coming out. And you were like, wow. And that's where he got, I'm assuming he got his nickname, Joe Scrap Iron, because all these sparkles and that. It was like I said, it was just something that I felt for it.
When I first started out, any car you got your hands on, you would make into a lowrider. We never wanted to go fast. We just wanted to look good when we got there.
When my son started getting interested in cars, when he was about 9th grade, a freshman in high school, he used to see me here working on my own cars, and he used to come home from school, and he used to say, hey, Dad, what can I help you with? Or I want to get my hands in there too to help you do whatever you're doing. And he started going in there with me, building motors and all that stuff, so he knows how to do all that stuff too. And then the only thing that I like cars that move, and he likes lowriders. He likes to go low and slow, and and I said to myself, well, that's what he likes. I'll just let him do what he likes. I can force him to do what I like. He wants to build a car that hops, like go up in the air, competition with that. And I told him, well, whatever you do the best you can. Always do it right. Don't cut corners for anything. Don't put a cheap part there that they give you just to put it, to keep it rolling. If you put a new one and do it right, that's the only thing that I like. When you do something, do it right the first time. You don't have to be going around and do it again.
Like, for instance, we have street hops. That's literally like a basketball game where the fans are around watching. These people are pulling up and you open their trunks. Okay, you have one pump, he has one pump. We're doing a single pump hop. Who can get the highest? So single pump has 2 hoses going to your front cylinders. So it's a little bit harder to get your car up higher. But I mean, these guys tweak their stuff to where mine was higher. I mean, bumpers were flying, crowds yelling. It's just, that's pretty much like our sport.
When they do those head-to-head competitions, they're trying to outdo each other. Who can hop the highest? Now, not everything goes as planned. I mean, if one car lands on the other, it's not a good thing for either person because that'll start a beef between those two people, and then, they might not get along after that. If, hey, you smashed my car, you did it on purpose. And I don't think they would intentionally do that. But back when the early days of hoppers, a lot of cars would catch on fire, and people would just love to see something crazy like that. If somebody flips over their car, even if it's to the side or to the back, because it's just outrageous. And three-wheeling is something that some people like to do instead of hop. And what they do is they'll just drive on three wheels,
Yeah, I have 348s. I'm gonna build two of them. This one that I'm building is a lowrider, real low. You can even stick that phone underneath the car. It's that low. And then once you punch the button, it just picks up by itself. And then the other one's gonna be original with the original, like the way they came out in factory in 1948. That's gonna be one of a kind.
The things that fascinate me are like the way they bring people together. The one photo of Angel Chacon in the car, it's like an 8-year-old girl. She claimed that car as her own. She said she liked that because she liked the color. I said, why do you like that color? She said, I don't know, I just like that's the car that she's going to inherit, For me, that sort of says what the lowriding culture is about.
With my cars, I have lots of nephews and a few nieces. The girls show more interest in my cars than the boys. In my will, the 3 cars are to girls. They show an interest. One of my nieces takes her kids to car shows.
And then now my girls are getting into it. Like, all my girls have already claimed their cars. Angel claims Bobby's 51, the blue one. Because that was, like, kind of the first one that she would go on. And she just liked the way the seats would bounce. And she just loved it. So she claimed that one. So that's her car. And Bobby, she's 3. So she already claimed the orange one because their favorite color is orange. And Heaven, she claimed the other red 61 because their favorite color is red.
My son's starting to paint now. He's going to be doing the painting from now on in our own cars. And he's a good welder for being such a young guy. He went to school for a semester to learn how to weld. And he learned it real good. And then they hired him in Los Alamos. So he's been up there working now. But as soon as he gets home, he comes here and works on cars.
There are people that, if you were walking down the street, you might not strike up a conversation with them. At a car show, there's a universal bond. You're talking cars.
It's a real thin line between a lowrider and a custom. Real thin line. It's all in the wheels, what kind of wheels you use. It's all into the paint job. Lowriders can be customized to the max and still be lowriders. One thing for sure is you go in a custom car or any lowrider car, anywhere you go. If you're shy, you better not have one because everybody's going to stop and talk to you and ask you about the car. And you can't go anywhere without stopping with a bunch of people gathering around it, taking pictures, asking you this and asking you that about the cars.
So we've met people from all over, like that have just through the cars. They just start talking to us. Like at first they would be like, can we ask you a question? We're like, yeah. And then they'd be like, what's that thing sticking out of his car? And we're like, oh, it's an air conditioner. And then we thought it was a compressor. We thought it was this, but it's an air conditioner. There's been a lot of interesting things. But the main one is like, how can a girl drive an oldie? I remember when I first drove, everybody looked at me like I was dumb driving an old car. I was more comfortable in an older car, and it was just worth it because you stand out of everywhere. There could be 10 cars, and you'll stand out of all those 10 cars. There could be 10 Corvettes, then there's an oldie. You'll look at the oldie before you look at the Corvettes. Or like any of the new cars, you'll still look at the oldies before.
My dad worked as a pit mechanic, so I always say it, I grew up with a wrench in my hand. My love for custom cars and automobile world started there.
A whole bunch of us here used to put little high-performing motors, and we didn't know that much back then what to put on to make it go faster. But we used to get together and go there, bet $20. I bet $20 I can beat you, and here and there. And we used to run up there on the long road there by Santuario, that area in there. We used to stop the traffic and race there.
My brother had my mother's Plymouth at that time, which is unusual for here because most people had Chevys and Fords that he used to drag race. They would see somebody in Espanola on the cruise and they would like challenge each other and they'd come up here. It was kind of just understood where you were going. They would do the cruise and they'd come up on the Chimaya Road and they would just end up over there. I didn't do it, but I was the flag boy, or they would put me on top of the hill so I could see down below. and yell if we saw somebody coming.
Oh, there was some drive-ins on Central that were real popular, Bob's and Vips and Max, and they'd cruise between those. Then there was always outlaw racing on Eubank. And Eubank was a legal drag strip sometimes. They did run it in the 50s and a few races in the real early 60s. In those days, a hot rod was something that you built from whatever you could find, something totally different than most things today. But every Saturday night, there was racing out there that wasn't legal. But it was basically in the middle of nowhere at that time. That's not today. And it was all we had. It was a social event, a fun thing, and it's a rush. I mean, what can you say? It's everybody likes different things, and I like trying to do something a little different. There's Fords, of course, aren't real popular racing. I've always tried to race the things that not everyone had.
You know, the Good Friday cruise, that's a big deal. I mean, that's, I think people thinking about Española and thinking, okay, you've got all of these people walking to the Santuario. I mean, you've got this gigantic cruise that's going through town, which is pretty cool also when you think about it. The cruise of the Santuario, it's, if you talk with almost any lowrider, I mean, there's going to be some exceptions, but most of them are very religious people also. You see a lot of religious murals on the back, or the car is dedicated to somebody that died in their family. So instead of doing the pilgrimage on foot, they're taking this homage to their dead brother, and they're cruising to the Santuario instead. People will walk from out by Cuba and Farmington, and they'll walk all the way to the Santuario. And you'll see the lowriders doing the same things. It's, you know, more of a celebration of Good Friday and Easter and things like that. I wouldn't call it a parade, but it's like that. It's showing their car, but I think it's showing, you know, how devout they are also. You know, it's not like they're just interested in car shows or whatever. They're saying, okay, the spirituality is really important to us.
Most lowriders, it's Our Lady of Guadalupe. In Chimayo, it's the Santuario, or the Santuario Incorporated. I think that's because of the mural painters here in Chimayo and the number of photographs in front of the Santuario of lowriders.
Of course, my first assignment at Lowrider magazine would be for my own state, for Chimayo, not even on cars, just on something that's our culture, you know. New Mexico gets a lot of recognition from other places on things I wouldn't even think people knew about. Like the head of Lowrider magazine, Joe Ray, he was like wanted a story on Chimayo and how the lowriding was. And the Good Friday cruise, he's like, I've always been infatuated with this. The cars cruise up there on Good Friday, and the priest comes out and blesses them in front of the church. I want you to do an article. I even cried that day because, I mean, I used to walk that. The reason we walked it was for the lowriders that would cruise up and down when we're walking to the church.
God always has a plan for us, you know, and my mom's always said to me, God knows the beginning and he knows the end, and that's where it's at. I've always left it that way, and me being who I am today, I thank him, you know, and like I say, there's so many stories of my car that's why a lot of people don't understand that when they see these cars where I'm from, and why don't they sell them, or they're always saying something. It's just that there's no value for the sentimental value, and my car was like everything I worked for so long, and that's why they're still there. Well, you just go down our street, they're still outside there, and you can't miss it.
I had a banker telling me, he said, what do you have all these cars? You know, you should sell them and get your money, put them in CDs. And I said, what am I going to do? Go up there once a month or once a week and can I look at my money? I said, no, that's not fun. I said, you know, you got the cars here, you can look at them and other people enjoy them. And I'll continue building as long as I have my health. I'll keep on trucking at it. That's my passion.
Lowrider will never die. Hot rods will never die, especially down here in the north. Everybody's into the lowriders. And the hot rods, there's still a few people that likes hot rods. So.
Up here is lowriders, the valley, Espanola Valley. Santa Fe, to me, lowriders are rare. Albuquerque, they're not rare. I'm not afraid to go into the South Valley of Albuquerque. A lot of people won't. They said, I'm not going down there. I'll go to the Dia de los Muertos November 1st, and that's a great place to see a lowrider parade because those guys bring their cars out. And a lot of people say, I'm not going down there. It's like, well, we can have a really good meal, and you have a really neat parade, and they're really nice people.
It's always still going to be here, and it's just the culture changes constantly. To build a lowrider costs a lot of money, especially to win. To win, like Casanova, that's $250,000 right there. But I'm gonna always be a lowrider. You know, I drive a lowrider every single day.
Well, my mom and my dad, they had land here in Chimayo, so they all gave us some 2-3 acres to each kid to build their own houses. So we all built houses around their house because their house is right in the middle, so we made like a horseshoe around them.
Coming from Chimayo was always known for our chili, our apples, our produce that we had there, you know, and most of all, mostly the cars. You know, it was things that we'd always see these older guys driving, like, wow, look at that. It was always there. I mean, no matter where we went, there was one or two, because they were always badass guys. You know, those were guys we look at with respect, and that's how I grew up. It was all about respect. Growing up with these guys that are no longer with us, but just the legacy they left still moves on.
I basically grew up in and around 3 buildings here in Chimayo: my parents' house, our store, and my grandparents' house. My parents would say, "We're having company tonight," or "We're going to go meet some customers for dinner." And my first question was, "What do they drive?" For some reason, I used to identify people with cars. Maybe it was because we had the store and I would see more cars than most people did. I remember we had a customer that used to come through here once a year or so that had a Packard, which was super rare. I'd see a mid-50s Packard in Chimayo.
You know, you go to a car show and you're becoming more culturally aware, you know, maybe inadvertently, but just talking with the people. A lot of people, I don't think they would consider cars an art scene. I do. Machinery to me, you know, something that's finely machined, that's a piece of art to me. I feel like if I'm doing a story on one of the car shows that we've had, it's because there's really a true appreciation, and I'm trying to convey that to the readers. And all of them, every one of them, and if you sit and talk with them, they all have stories where they found the car or where the art come from, or, you know, that their brother did die in an accident, and so this car, when they take it out every time, it's like they're paying respect to his memory.
Well, we show what we have inside. When you see a person's car, it's their style, their charisma in it, their way of how they see it, because to them it's like it's their girl, you know. And the gentlemen's always their wives say, "You pay attention more to that car than you do to me." Well, they don't talk back to us. They don't do this. They don't do that. Our cars are our life, and when you can work so hard for it and show what you got and show your people, like, wow, you know, that's coming from the Hispanic side. That's, I think, where I would rather be known for that kind of art than anything else. And we survive inside ourselves in different ways, and we show ourselves in our art. I mean, our cars are art. I mean, it's always been and always will.
Well, what we use is like a cool name. Like some guys use La Sancha. That means like their girlfriend or something, you know. And then like my other buddy, he just called his car now. He just finished up Drop It Like It's Hot. That's like the name of a song. And my red car is called Wule Bule. I don't know if you've heard that song called Wule Bule from the Sham. And my other buddy's from California. He's 64. He calls it the Gypsy Rose. There's the Michael Jackson car. There's the Elvis Presley car that we have in the Imperials. Back when Elvis was still alive, he bought Earl, a friend of his when he used to live in LA, was in the Imperials, and he bought him a Caprice, and they put a bunch of murals of Elvis all around it. And that car's still around today.
El Pachuco, that one, it's a 51 Buick, yeah. I bought that one from a gentleman in Albuquerque, and somebody had already chopped it. The engine was out of it, the whole front end was out of it, and I loaded it up, brought it home. And I was going to, fix it up and do all kinds of stuff. And then the Mercury came along, so I abandoned that project. And I sold it to another guy in Albuquerque for $900. After I finished my Merc and did all kinds of stuff, I think I was looking for another project. And I talked to my brother. He says, "Well, that guy that you sold the cars, he still has it there." So we called him up. He says, "Yeah, I'll sell it back to you." I said, "What do you want for it?" "Just give me what I paid, $900. So I went back and picked it up. We loaded it up. And I said, "Well, thank you for storing my car for all this time." So I brought it back, and I found a 1978 Oldsmobile. Nice car, 4-door, hardtop, black interior. I got home. We stripped it completely. Took everything off except for the floorboard and the dash. And then I cut the floorboard off the Buick and I put it right on top of that whole thing. So right now the Buick, it's all Oldsmobile. It's got a 455 Oldsmobile engine on it. The original Oldsmobile dash and the seats, the original. And of course we slammed it and did all kinds of old school stuff on it. Once I started building it, I saw it and it was just leaning back, and I looked at it and he said, that guy looks like a Pachuco, you know, too cool. So that's how I got the name. That one's won quite a few awards too, and all different shows that I've gone to.
In Espanola, they had what we used to call the cruise. You had the pattern where you would go and make the circles. And we would end up at Tasty Freeze or Stop and Eat, which were two old-fashioned drive-ins. And so you'd go to one and then you'd go back around town and go. Right. It was kind of built up like a Sonic. It was before Sonics.
The main cruise was actually Douglas Avenue, right, from Grand to A Street. Safeway parking lot, everybody used to gather there. And then, yeah, you could cruise up A Street, down National, around the Plaza Park, and then back down National, and then on 12th Street, and back on Douglas. And it just, I'll say, sometimes they would go up Grand all the way up to the old train. But yeah, Fridays, Saturday nights, I mean, that thing was bumper to bumper. That was the best, like real good, you know. It was real nice to see that. And this summer weekends, we've been getting together with another club here in town, Players Car Club. We've been supporting them guys, and they say, hey, let's have a cruise night. And so we all go, our club members, you know, we'll go out there and we'll cruise around together. And doesn't matter what club you're from, you know, it's being friends with everybody, being cool with everybody, you know, and that's what I've done through my years of low riding. I met so many guys out of Española, Albuquerque. I know so many lowrider guys, so many clubs. I see them at car shows, and it's like, you know, goes back to them days, you know, real good guys. So yeah, there's gang members that would tell you that low riding got him out of the gang, you know. And yeah, it's a bond, I mean, with a low rider, like, because of the low riding scene. That's why I'm so close with those guys in Española, Epi, you know.
Low riding wasn't out here for 15 years. It took a break. People started getting killed. Everybody just kind of backed up. I'm not going to lie to you. There was a bad era that had nothing to do with low riding. This was bad people that liked low riders. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't low riders that were bad. It was bad people that bought cars because they had so much money. And, I mean, when you're a young 25-year-old kid like Rob Anderson and somebody's giving you $25,000 to paint a car, you don't care where that money's from. You're going to do it, you know, and you have kids to feed. This is how I tell everybody. I don't care what you do, as if you're a good person, we'll work with you.